What we negotiated just now on October 21st was the last set of what we call disengagement agreement. The troops, which is why the word disengagement, having them go back to their normal operating basis as far as possible, and also resuming patrol in the way in which it used to be done in 2020. The disengagement chapter is done. Its implementation will happen in the coming days to everybody's satisfaction. Part which awaits us is what we call the de-escalation, which is the buildup of forces along the line of actual control. Our relationship was also very profoundly affected because it has always been an assumption on our side that peace and tranquility in the border areas is a prerequisite for the development of our ties. Since peace and tranquility was disturbed, including one major incident of bloodshed, our relationship with China has cut back in different ways.
I think a lot of countries, including Australia, look to your relationship with China, and the negotiations across a range of issues that India has dealt with. And of course, recently the two countries announced a way forward on issues concerning the disputed border area. That does seem to validate the idea of negotiation and give and take, and that diplomacy remains vital in resolving these disputes. We, of course, have been there before when it comes to China and making agreements and then breaking agreements. So I'm keen to hear your thoughts on where you see the India-China relationship, having now made that seeming breakthrough. Where do you see that relationship going in the next few years, given that it's not just important for India and China, but the relationship is really vital for the region itself?
Sure. Justin, let me split that into three parts. What did we just negotiate? What still lies ahead of us? And in a sense, what's our medium, long-term view of the particular relationship? What we negotiated just now on October 21st was the last set of what we call disengagement agreements, which essentially means that after the summer of 2020, Chinese and Indian troops have been forward deployed, you can say, along the line of actual control in distances which were extremely concerning. The priority has been to find ways of separating the troops, which is why the word disengagement, having them go back to their normal operating basis as far as possible, and also resuming patrol in the way in which it used to be done in 2020. Now, this lot of the last agreement, you can say, primarily related to two areas which had to do with patrolling, where there were obstructions to the patrolling, and those obstructions were resolved. And the expectation is that patrolling there would resume. In fact, it is happening as we speak. It will take a little while because so we did the initial verification patrolling, then the actual patrolling takes place after that. Now, that's the part which we have got done. So you can say, in a way, the disengagement chapter is done. Its implementation will happen in the coming days to everybody's satisfaction. And the part which now awaits us, the immediate part which awaits us, is what we call the de-escalation, which is the buildup of forces along the line of actual control, because both of us, in our case, it was a counter deployment. In their case, was the initial deployment. We have many more forces with much greater weaponry than existed along the line or proximate to the line before 2020. So we have negotiations ahead of us. During this period, our relationship was also very profoundly affected because It has always been an assumption on our side that peace and tranquility in the border areas is a prerequisite for the development of our ties. And since peace and tranquility was disturbed, including one major incident of bloodshed, our relationship with China has cut back in different ways. So we also have to look at it. Now, everything is not going to happen at once. I mean, there will obviously be discussions of various kinds. But at the meeting, with the formal bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi, which was actually happening after 5 years, what was agreed was that the Foreign Minister and the National Security Advisor, we would meet our counterpart, and so would the relevant officials, and find ways by which we will have to discuss, how do we normalize the relationship, and what would be the extent and the pace and the manner in which we would do that. The third part is, okay, but how do we actually see that relationship? It's really, in a way, quite a challenge, because you have two, the two most populous countries in the world, both of whom have been rising. They are rising in a broadly parallel time frame, physically next to each other, in a manner in which I would argue there are very few historical examples. And how do you establish an equilibrium between yourselves in the border areas, which happens to be disputed as well as establish a working relationship on other issues, regional issues, multilateral issues. How do your new expressions of influence and activities impact on the relationship? Where do they, in a way, come into contact with each other? These are really a very complex set of issues, and do require a lot of thinking and management.